Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Hi, this is Shash Anand from SOTI. You're listening to the New Warehouse podcast, and today's safety tip is using a cohesive mobile strategy for new technology can help counteract the repercussions of the pandemic. With an integrated mobility and IoT management platform, for example, transportation and logistics companies can increase speed, minimize costs, and ensure transparency.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer. Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Shash Anand. He is the VP of Product Strategy at SOTI, and he's going to talk to us about SOTI, what it is they do, and also their recently released T&L report, how it kind of differs from the last one, and getting really into talking about lost time and how system and technical issues are creating that in our world, in the warehousing distribution environment. And really kind of, how do we combat that and what's really driving that? So, Shash, welcome to this show. How are you?
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me here.
Definitely happy to get you on here and, talk about this report you guys came out with. But I guess before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit for people that maybe are not familiar with SOTI, give us a little overview, what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, sure. So SOTI it's a software solution, and we basically offer something called the SOTI ONE Platform. And what it is, it's an integrated suite of solutions that are really designed to focus on the costs, the complexities, and the downtime related to business critical mobility. And more specifically, the SOTI ONE Platform has 7 different products where we're focusing on things like removing functional silos, we're limiting downtime, we're helping you build apps faster, manage all of your different mobile and IoT devices all in one place, and then being able to deliver actionable insights.
Okay, great. And it sounds like, obviously downtime is a huge focus in the warehousing industry. So I guess, for people that are looking for, how does SOTI apply to the warehousing sector, why don't you give us like one example of, how you guys go in and kind of do one of these applications or something to help reduce these types of things?
Sure. I think it starts off with many companies that are still looking at or using paper and pen processes. That's one kind of area that we help people people address that problem. There is a perception that moving from, say, a paper and pen process to a mobile app or a mobile device could take, months, or you require a huge set of developers. But the reality is, Kevin, even you and I can build a mobile app in a matter of minutes, convert that paper and pen process into a mobile app, and have it work on iOS and Android. No programming knowledge required, and it's very, very simple to drag and drop type experience. So I think that's one area that we focus on, in helping companies kind of move to a mobile platform.
Okay. All right. I think that explains it pretty well. Yeah. And I will say pen and paper, oh my God, I can't stand it. I hate to hear that people are still doing that. And, me being able to build an app, that's news to me. So that's pretty intriguing. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, even I would say, Kevin, even Word documents or Excel spreadsheet, like people are still using those as well. But the reality is mobile apps you can convert into a mobile app very, very quickly.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So you guys recently released this TNL report, and I'm going to ask you, how does it differ from last year's report? But I guess before we do that, why don't you tell us what is the TNL report? What is that? What does that consist of, and what's in it?
Sure. So we went around to 8 different countries, about 550 people we interviewed, and what we wanted to understand from the TNL report is, obviously we knew the last year's report was pre kind of COVID relatively. This year's report is after COVID, and we wanted to understand the major differences and the reliance on the TNL industry, of course, has become huge. Right. And there are companies that are making investments, and we wanted to understand how those technology investments are perceived by those end users. So when I say end users, these are people that are driving the trucks, for example, the planes, moving cargo from one place to another. And as you mentioned, one of the big things in the report was that 98% of TNL decision makers indicated that in a normal week, employees are losing hours dealing with technical or system difficulties or downtime, which is causing the delay in shipments.
Yeah, that's crazy. Definitely staggering for sure. But before we get into that, I'm curious, what's because obviously, last year was a little strange, right? We could say that. Yeah. A little different than other years. And you mentioned, that the previous report was a kind of pre-COVID. So I'm curious, what were some of the major differences from the last report to this one? Is there any dramatic things that changed from people?
I would say that there was definitely a lack of visibility, I think, is what kind of came about from last year's report, where the numbers really showcased the lack of technology, the lack of integration of the technology. So it's more of a realization now, because there's such a importance of, hey, 2-day delivery time or 1-day delivery time or same day. So there's this huge pressure on the TNL industry to really kind of cut every single second. And so the other thing that I think we found from this report versus last year's is online sales drastically increased. And as a result, the returns process, I think this was a big one. The returns process is just as important for retail sales, because retail experienced a 41% increase in online returns last holiday season. And the other thing that I would say is that the Suez Canal incident came up, right? And if you're familiar with that, it left retailers and brands trying to adopt different solutions to avoid kind of that supply chain crisis. We saw a big increase in specific types of goods. I'd say like sporting goods, clothing, food and beverage. As consumers ended up getting their stimulus checks, that's where they were spending their money on. So those are just kind of some of the examples. We also saw a massive increase in U.S. trucking companies scrambling really to hire more drivers. There was roaring consumer demand. There was very tight shipping capacities. So the freight market, grew exponentially. I know some of our customers, for example, in the food delivery section, really saw massive exponential increases, and they'd have to hire hundreds of thousands of people to really keep up with the demand. So that was kind of exciting in some cases. Obviously, I'm not talking about the overall COVID situation, but it was exciting to kind of see this huge adoption towards mobility and the need for it even more.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting you mentioned about the returns because, certainly there was like such a huge focus, I think, from like a news cycle standpoint of like e-commerce spiking and all this increased demand, but people aren't really thinking about that back end. Certainly in like the fulfillment and distribution side, we're thinking of because returns is like the worst thing to deal with.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
So it's pretty interesting. And, I had somebody on the show previously when we talked about this concept of like bracketing where people are, they're buying like 2-3 different sizes just to see like which one fits, and then they send the other one back. So it's really really
my
interesting.
wife does that all the time.
oh, you're calling her out? Okay.
I'm calling her out. Yeah, it's hilarious because the kids grow so fast. You got to buy all these things, and you don't know what size they are anymore. So yeah, definitely, I can see it. It hits home. Yeah,
it's crazy. So obviously, a lot of things are on the rise and spiking, but one of the most, I think, remarkable and kind of staggering things, I think, from the report, which you mentioned there in the beginning, was about this lost time, and like 98% of the people surveyed say that they're losing time because of the system and technical issues. And I think that's just, it's crazy because it shows that like almost like a ton of the industry is behind on the technology because they're not keeping up. They're losing time because I'm guessing it's from legacy systems and things of that nature. So, how long on average are employees losing like each week? Like how much time?
Yeah, it's a great question. It worked out to about 2 days of work per month are lost by employees due to these legacy systems and mobile device downtime. So when I think of legacy systems, think about not only the fact that they're older, but the fact that they're not integrated with the other systems that they're using. And so as companies are adopting new technologies, their older technologies are falling behind. And so you need a solution that can kind of come in and handle your legacy systems, integrate well with your new systems. And how do you address mobile device downtime? That might be a pretty big question, right? Well, there's many ways to do this, but obviously you need some type of real-time kind of help desk solution, really remote into kind of an end user's mobile device, see what they're seeing, help them out. So this isn't a typical, hey, my email's not working. These are people that are doing delivery. This is where every minute matters. And so we call these mission critical devices, and that's why they're so important. Where downtime is really not an option. So how do you eliminate downtime is really the what people are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you put it on that scale, 2 days per month per employee, you're looking at 12 months in a year. That's almost like a month of work a year. Yeah, that's crazy.
Exactly.
So, how do, we talk about they're stuck in these technologies and, oftentimes, I certainly work for companies. I work for one right now, and, it's difficult to get them to move forward, right? Sometimes because it's a scary thing. Change is scary, right? So, how do you think like companies start to combat this? Like, how do they go after this? How do they recognize? I guess maybe the first step is, how do they actually initially recognize the amount of time that they're losing and where they're losing it at?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of them they don't even recognize the losses because sometimes they're not even reported. How do you track? How do you get visibility? Right. So first and foremost, it's really about identifying where they are able to recognize the holes. And so you need, again, it's two things. I think one is you need the right partners in place to help you. You don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of companies that are way ahead of the game. They understand the tech. They understand what works and what doesn't work for them. I would strongly advise that you don't just buy the next great thing, the next shiny object that you hear about. But I think in today's day and age, you need solutions in place that allow you as a company to adapt because it's not like I can just buy this product and it's like buying a TV, right? As soon as you buy it, it becomes outdated the next year, right? Yeah. So you have to have something that can update and easily update your technology as well. And as we all know, when you buy your phone or you got your iOS or Android, those operating systems are upgrading regularly. Those applications need to be updated regularly. So you need a solution in place that allows you to upgrade and update your solutions on a regular basis as well.
Yeah.
So visibility is the first thing I would say is let's find solutions and let's find partners that can help you out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the visibility certainly is a key factor. And, you know, I think what you're talking about there is, you know, the constant updating as well. I think, I think it's pretty interesting because, you know, we see, I think in the supply chain space and warehousing distribution space, you know, we're seeing like a lot of what we would use personally as technology, like you mentioned on the phone and things like that, starting to kind of translate over into like the enterprise space. And it's really a pretty interesting trend, but I think a lot of companies still are not like catching on to that, or they're skeptical of catching on to that. And, you know, obviously that constant updating, like having cloud-based systems and things like that where these updates can get pushed to you is really going to be helpful in making sure that you're staying on top of it. So, you know, I guess, how do you kind of talk to companies? And because I mean, I guess it's what you guys are kind of doing is like, how do you talk to companies and like, you know, tell them it's time to upgrade, and, you know, what's the right path for them to start doing that?
Yeah, I think a few things to answer your question. One is these types of reports that we put out. So we want to go out to as many people as possible to get what is the industry kind of saying. So one is to be educated on what is the overall trend that people are seeing. And if I look at things like the current retail situation and we look at our customers, or the transportation logistics industry, we look at our customers, we know that today's shoppers, they're really interested in faster, more efficient shopping experiences, as you said. They want to be providing better online and offline shopping experiences for consumers. And the way to do that is through innovative technology. It's really no longer an option, but it's actually, as you said, it's an expectation from these consumers who know that 24/7 is kind of the world that they live in. So it's as simple as exploring kind of, you know, so what we do is we kind of talk to customers about what are other retailers doing to kind of stay ahead of the curve. And it could be simple things like digital signage. It could be kiosks. It could be beacon technology to help you understand where your consumers are, even within your own premise. It could be leveraging IoT sensors to help you with inventory. I can't give a one solution fits all, but what I do is we try to say, what are the challenges that you are having as an enterprise? And they open up, they understand their operations. They do really well with knowing where their holes are. So when you talk to customers, they know that, okay, you know what, we have point of sale systems, but we've got these long lineups, or we've got people in different places. Could we use mobile POS systems? And that's their need right now. And it's not going to be a one size fits all. It's going to be iterative. So no matter what, you do this in stages. You address one problem, you move on to the next. And if you want to focus on the consumer experience, you want to focus on interactive experiences, and you want to be able to personalize that shopping experience. So where does SOTI come in after that? After we've identified kind of what are the technologies that you need, it's about these new technologies and their need to be securely managed. And that's kind of where we also come in. We help with helping you make your, you know, shopping experience more efficient. If you're talking about retail, we're talking about personal data, making sure that's secure. In the T&L industry, it's about, you know, meeting customer demands in real time. It's about using more mobile devices because you want to track everything along the entire chain. As soon as somebody places an order, how does it now get to that end user's, you know, door, that consumer's door? And so this usually means a bit more technology, more mobile devices, more applications, and this increases the management complexity. It increases the multiple security holes that could exist along the way now, and it is, as we talked about earlier, downtime. So how do you have remote support? How do you create apps? How do you distribute all this content to all the devices at the same time? How do you address privacy concerns? How do you get analytics on all of these mobile devices to give you that visibility that you're looking for? That's kind of what we come in and talk to these guys about. So it's very much about, hey, here's how things are going. Here's what people are doing. Here's what other customers are doing, and giving them the options. A lot of customers don't really know all the options that they have.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And now a quick break to hear from our sponsor, Supply Chain Mavens. The past year has been full of fascinating and complex supply chain news, from shortages and forecasting challenges to issues with COVID-19 test components to the never-before-seen speed to market of the vaccine. In the past year, logistics and supply chain professionals like you have been nothing short of miracle workers. Supply Chain Mavens helps your team to continuously improve by developing tailored training solutions to enhance your team's competencies so they can successfully work across all aspects of supply chain. They offer exam preparation for the coveted APICS, certified in logistics, transportation, and distribution designation, as well as education in topics across the supply chain. Visit them at supplychainmavens.net/new warehouse to learn how they can help you advance your team's performance. That's supplychainmavens.net/new warehouse. Now back to the show. Yeah, and I think that's actually a really interesting point there at the end, is that, a lot of people that are working in the industry don't realize everything that's out there. And,
Yes.
I've certainly run, into myself and, working in the industry, and you see people, they've been working maybe at the same place for 10, 15 years. And so they're not getting necessarily exposed to this other stuff by like seeing what other organizations are doing, things of that nature, and maybe not as aware of the technologies that are out there, and maybe not listening to the podcast as much as they should and learning about new stuff. But so, I think it's an interesting thing. And there's kind of like this, technology for, I think, the warehousing distribution space, certainly with robotics and automation and things of that nature, and even on the system side, has been developing like rapidly over the past just couple years. I think like it seems it's like super accelerated. And, I think now we're getting to this point too where we're seeing like these younger generation that's interested in the tech and these things like that, which is actually going to, make them want to work in the space, which has been a challenge as well, make it more interesting and cool for them. But, kind of going up against that challenge maybe of the old guard, I guess, of the warehouse, right? And thinking like, oh, this is the way we've been doing it works, I don't want any disruption, anything like that. So yes. How do you think that someone, I guess, in that position, I guess like if you're speaking to someone that's like in charge of a warehouse or a warehouse manager or something like that, and they're seeing these issues with the technology, they're having the downtime, and they want to try and manage that and bring in something new, like how do you think they should go about that? And what advice do you have for them to like start to look at different options that they can then like present to their leadership?
So I think it starts with the technology that you're looking. So let's okay. It's hard to take multiple steps back, but it's about identifying the problems that you're trying to solve. So if it's about saving time, then we need to go in and, somebody like SOTI, what we do is we go in and we understand your operations, and we look at it right from the beginning all the way to the end. And in there, we try to identify, okay, where are you spending the most time? What are those things that you're doing that take the longest? Or what are you doing that's maybe not done as often, but it takes a very long time? And usually what we find is that there's a lot of manual operations being done in the T&L space and those manual operations, they don't get tracked properly. So in other words, let's give you an example. Truck inspections. So you have to inspect your truck before it goes. And what they do is they just walk around, they put in a clipboard, they put in the information, they enter in the details, goes into a binder, and it's gone. Yep. What happens? There's a maintenance required. There's a problem with your truck. That ends up costing that company thousands of dollars, where the inspection didn't catch something or the person didn't do it properly. And so those are little things that we kind of look at, we identify, we understand, and sometimes they understand it too. They recognize that there's holes in their process, or they say, this takes 24 hours for us to return back. So we look at those types of processes. Why does it take 24 hours to return back this information, as an example? Or we look at the system and what are they using? Are they using a Word document? Are they using a spreadsheet? So we try to identify what are the problems that they have, what are the manual operations that they're doing today, how much time are they spending? People, updating every single device one by one in their stores, and they go to each store and they hire a whole team to do this. And so these solutions, we have solutions for all of these types of problems. And so once we identify and uncover these things, it becomes a really easy discussion around what type of technologies are you looking at? What could we expose you to? And that's where management of the technology becomes very important. And you want a single pane of glass to manage all those different types of devices, whether you're on iOS, Android, Windows, Linux, Chrome, it ties in wearables, Google Glasses, for example. All of those types of devices and technology, we can expose them to because we have all this visibility into them. So to answer your question in short, it's consult with a partner that can help you and guide you. You don't have to do this on your own.
Yeah. I think that's good advice, because you definitely, like we just kind of previously talked about, you're not necessarily getting exposed to all this stuff daily unless you're kind of seeking it out, right? So you need to really kind of lean on somebody that has the exposure to it and to give you the exposure, really. So I think it's really good advice there as well. So, I got one more question for you. I mean, I'm curious, we've been talking about like the need to upgrade and why people should upgrade and what there is to upgrade to. But I'm curious, why is it that companies are like not upgrading? What do you think is like holding them back, or why? Like, what's really kind of some of the resistance sometimes?
Okay, so that's a great question. Why do companies not upgrade? One is because it often takes them a huge amount of time to test a current version. So let's say version 1.0 comes out, and I'll tell you a few other things. Normally, a lot of companies do not upgrade to the version, say 1.0. They'll wait for 1.2 or 1.3 because usually when you do a massive upgrade, there's always a few bugs and you kind of want to wait for a more stable version. So that's one reason for hesitation. It's to wait till the 0.3 version of the massive version comes out. Next, I would say it's just the time it takes for them to test. So a lot of times they may want to test across multiple teams. They may want to test across multiple environments. So they'll go from, say, a test environment to a staging environment to a production environment. And then this takes time. This takes sometimes 5 to 6 months. Some companies take 6 months to 12 months just to evaluate your solutions, make sure that they work. They want to hear back from end users. So that time is a very long time for them. And so hence, if I tell you the next day there's a new version out and you have to retest everything, that is what really kind of inhibit or slows down the process, because they don't want to spend another 6 to 12 months upgrading. So hence they do it on cycles. The other thing is, if you're in retail or TNL, you'll have busy cycles and you'll have down cycles. And so you want to plan as many things during your downtime. And I think that's where many companies wait. So if there's a sudden need for something, it's hard for them to adjust very quickly because they want to do it during their enterprise cycles.
Very interesting. And so you mentioned that, doing these updates can take 6 to 12 months, and then, you get the 1.2, 1.3. I'm curious, as technology is accelerating more, and, we talk about like cloud-based systems and being able to push out updates and things like that. Do you think that we are getting close, or we're working towards the point where, something like that doesn't take 6 to 12 months? Like, it is almost like we were talking about before, like an update on your phone. Is it going to get to that point for the enterprise level?
Yes, I absolutely think so, because what happens is the updates that are required at these points in time, the reason why they take 6 to 12 months and the reason why they have to test everything is because they're not doing the incremental updates. If they were doing smaller incremental updates on a regular basis where certain things are changing, you keep upgrading. It's kind of like if you drive, the Tesla, it keeps updating every week. There's a new update. But if you if you can get into a process of regularly updating your technologies to the latest and greatest, and it's easy to do that. It's not 6 months to go in and just update it, then let alone test it all. So if you have solutions in place, like the SOTI ONE platform as an example, you will be able to do these smaller incremental updates on a regular basis very easily in the matter of hours or days. And that's kind of what you want to get that mentality to. But it's it's a change. It's a paradigm change for many companies because they're worried about their whole system breaking. They're worried about all these things. So they need to be in assurance that, hey, if I go and upgrade this from say 15.1 to 15.11, that there won't be massive repercussions.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where the mentality has to go. And the tools that are available to you to do your tests can be done where you can test out staging environments relatively quickly. You can get that user adoption relatively quickly. So it's the mindset of the end user, it's the mindset of the IT administrator as well that has to administer all this, that needs to get into that regular reoccurrence updates.
Very interesting, and I think that's a good point about the incremental, and it's certainly something that I think the industry needs to get towards, especially if they want to address this issue that's obviously a lot of people are experiencing with the downtime due to system and technical issues. So really interesting stuff from you, Shash, and from the report as well, and some great advice there for companies as well, and for younger professionals trying to get those older professionals to get a little more technology in their workplace. So
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you coming on the show. How can people find out more information about SOTI?
Sure. So to find out more information about SOTI, please visit www.soti.net.
All right, great. And we'll put that link on the newwarehouse.com as well. So Shash, Thank you again so much for your time today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.